What is up, my WAP movie realists? Once again, I am Matt, and we are here for a different kind of real review because this is one of those times where I'm doing a review for something that's years and years old. And it's different for me because it's not something I normally do, but because of the circumstances, it only makes sense to do this, and that is Daredevil Season 1. That's right, we're talking Daredevil. I'm actually really excited for this because I have dubbed this week here at What Real Entertainment Daredevil Week. We are in the week before Daredevil Born Again comes out. Let's be honest, this series and its compatriots were a large part of the mid to late 2010s when it came to showing that superhero shows can work. Now, granted, we had the CW shows and they had found their success early on, whether that be Smallville or Arrow, but this was the first time you really felt that these superhero shows could be adult. So they kind of laid the foundation for Disney, along with the CW shows, to like figure out where Disney was going to place their Marvel MCU shows. And I feel like up until now, we've had a great idea of they tend to balance out somewhere between a CW show and these Netflix grittier shows that started with Daredevil. So when you first saw the trailer of Daredevil Born Again, which by the way, that trailer reaction is on the channel if you want to check that out after this, I was really excited, and I felt that we were really digging back into what made this series so great. But for me, what's so interesting about this series is I haven't watched it since rewatching it leading into season 3. I've only seen season 3 once, and that was back in 2018 when it came out. So when we get throughout all these different series throughout the week, it will be very interesting to break down my thoughts on revisitation to them. However, we'll get into that more at the end when I break down everything we're doing for Daredevil Week. But I want to focus on season 1 of Daredevil right now because I honestly forgot how amazing that season 1 of this show actually is. It's one of those things where you're just having so much fun. They set up Matt Murdock's character really well, do a great job giving you his origin story, and just overall exploring the characters and the setup. And I feel like Charlie Cox nails it. Deborah Ann Woll as Karen Page is a fantastic addition. And I will always love my boy from Mighty Ducks, Foggy Nelson. The actor's name is slipping me, but he plays Foggy Nelson. And I just absolutely adore what he's able to give us. But outside of I'm gonna find out his name now. Elden Henson. Sorry, Elden. Big fan for years. You were outside of Charlie Conway and Keenan. You were my favorite Mighty Duck. Sorry about that. However, going back into this, I was just absolutely. I remember this was how I felt back when I first watched this, and those feelings came back. I was absolutely blown away by Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk, who, upon this rewatch, peek behind the curtain. Whenever a new season of a show comes out, if it's a show I love or it's a show I care about, I always tend to rewatch every season before it, leading up to that new season. So I was going to do this with Daredevil anyway, so I just decided let's review it also. So I haven't seen this season of Daredevil since 2018 when season 3 was coming out. So I have now seen it 4 total times because Born Again is essentially season 4. Upon this rewatch, after reflecting on some and picking up on certain things in my personal life that I've noticed and about myself, and I noticed a lot in the Wilson Fisk character now, where it seems like Wilson Fisk may be suffering, or not suffering, but may have ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder, which I thought was very interesting. And you can see it a lot in how D'Onofrio plays it with the patterns in his speech and how he views people and how he treats certain relationships, especially Vanessa. But in season one, and Wesley a lot, how he views his friendship with Wesley, and how he reacts to losing him, which we'll get into in a little bit later on in the series. It shows a lot of what you typically see in people with ASD. So I found that very interesting, but it's a brilliant performance, and I absolutely was floored by it during this rewatch. The action, as always, is great, but I had never once thought about how these seasons needed to be shorter until we got other Defender shows. Daredevil is the first one, right? The season one of Daredevil, you can say there's not really any filler. Every episode is intentional and it has its purpose. There's nothing you could really cut out. That's not to say we don't have that type of issue later on, in whether it be Punisher or Daredevil, or any of the other Defender series. But it's still just one of those things where, like, okay, this is an interesting exploration. And I love going back to the origins that were given. I love getting this Nelson and Murdoch story, and I do have issues with season 2 and 3, how they carry on with it, but we'll dive into those and when I cover those seasons later this week. But getting to see the early on friendship and just how these two young upstarts saw just the overall good and innocence in a person, Matt specifically seeing the innocence in Karen, and trying to do the absolute right thing, even if it means not getting paid, which I laugh because Foggy is clearly like I got into being a lawyer to make money in season 1, and we need to make money. And there's parts of it like that in season 2, and I'll dive into that again when I cover season 2. But Matt is clearly I want to be a lawyer to take care of the everyman, make sure everyone is receiving justice, which is why I think it's a perfect reflection of who he is as Daredevil, because even though at night when he's Daredevil, he may not be getting justice the most ethical way, he's still going about getting justice and trying to put things in the right perspective. So that was really interesting. And to later on in the season go, and this is something I forgot. I didn't realize it happened so early on in the show, to have Foggy discover that Matt is Daredevil, like, so early on. I really don't know upon rewatch how I feel about that, because ultimately what you end up doing is you put a massive strain on their relationship early on, and I get that it carries over into these other seasons. However, when you look back at the history of Nelson and Murdoch, they find some success together, and it's not something we ever really see so far. Granted, Born Again hasn't come out. It's not something we ever really see in this show, which throws me a bit, because I'd like to see a semi-successful Nelson and Murdoch law firm excuse me, going on. But I do love the dynamic they have, especially once you add Karen Page to the mix. And Deborah Ann Woll, I did not know her from her time on True Blood. Daredevil was the first time I ever really saw her. I never saw Escape Room out. I never watched True Blood, and she was in 71 episodes of that show. So for me, the only place I ever really would see her would be Daredevil. So I was always like, personally, I would end up being like, hey, I want to see more of her, please. Like, I get that she does a lot of gaming voiceovers and things like that, but it's strange to me that even post this show, we don't see her in a lot of mainstream productions, because was lauded as one of the major lights of this show, and The Punisher, because she's in that as well. and just to like have her not really be in much is it's interesting to say the least. But going off of that, the dynamic we get between Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk so early on, because I shouldn't say so early on, because they meet after Matt hearing this name for a few episodes. They meet at an art gallery with Matt's trying to do some reconnaissance, and he just does. It's the most interesting and casual of meetings at the same time, and I absolutely had so much fun with it because knowing what we know that eventually Fisk knows who he is and whatnot, it's very nice to see that Matt can see through Wilson's bullshit early on. But I do love the connection also talking about Wilson that Wilson has with Vanessa, who's played by Ayelet Zurer, who, for those of you who didn't realize, she was Kal-El's mom in Man of Steel. She is Kal-El's mom in Man of Steel, and that's the first time I ever saw her before Daredevil. And I thought she was great in both roles, and I can't wait to see her again in Born Again. I don't know how I feel about the Stick storyline. I get that it adds more to the depth of Matt, and it's kind of like almost like Stick is his Ra's al Ghul, a la to the Ra's al Ghul to Matt Murdock's Batman, if you want to compare it to Batman Begins in the early to mid 2000s. But still, overall, when it comes to this season, when season really hits an overdrive, the last few episodes where you have Ben Ulrich, played by Vondi Curtis Hall, who has great chemistry with Deborah Ann Woll and kind of this mentor type character. Just such a great job. I really enjoyed him, and I wish we got to see more of him. Him dying so early on was one of my biggest complaints about this film because I just absolutely wanted more Ben. And I feel like we said bye to Ben too quickly. But at the same time, I think it would feel different if I'd feel differently if we didn't just jump into what we do in season 2 with Karen and her storyline. So it's one of those things, you deal with it, but I wish we got to spend more time with him. And ultimately, I'm going to end on a positive here before I give my rating. I love the action. There are so many amazing action sequences in seasons 1 and 2 of Daredevil. It's why I am so excited that they brought back the stunt coordinator from seasons 1 and 2 of this show for Born Again, because with Born Again being a continuation of the show, and Charlie Cox came out and said the reason we're called Born Again is not because of the Daredevil Born Again storyline. It's because it is a continuation of the Netflix show, and we are being born again, which, cool. I'm all for it. I was already signed up. You're only making me more excited. And the trailer made me so excited. But being able to have that type of violence and that action in a Disney Plus show is something we haven't had. And I love how Disney is making it clear, like, hey, this is going to be violent. They are doing it in the TV-14 rating. They're doing so much to make families and the audience aware, like, hey, we're going to go to the same places as this Netflix show. And I'm so excited for that. But the action carrying over from that to this is one of those major reasons. And I'm just so happy. With that, though, I am going to give this first season a 4 out of 5 rating. Like I said, there was a lot I loved. There's also a few things I didn't care for, like the Ben dying and just their lulls within episodes. And I do think while each episode does have a purpose, they could have been cut down certain amounts. But that's just a personal preference and vision. But overall, it's still a very solid show. I forgot how good it was until I was watching it. I even told my friend Kutso, I'm like, I really forgot how good Daredevil was. And it caused him to be like, oh, wait, why are you rewatching that? Well, the new series comes out and it's continuation. Oh, well, I guess I got to watch them now too. So if you're rewatching Daredevil heading into Born Again, what did you think upon a rewatch? Let me know in the comments. Or if you're not rewatching it, you just remember the show, what do you think in the comments? Just want to put these thoughts up there. You guys know me if you're subscribed to this channel. I don't really have a script. I just riff off my memory. I do realize that I did not talk about the Wesley and Fisk relationship like I wanted to, so I'll backtrack to that a little bit in regards to Wilson and his ASD. So later on in the series, Karen, for her safety, ends up killing Wesley because he abducts her and he puts her in a chair and tries to intimidate her, and the idiot puts a gun in front of her and it's like, it's not loaded. You're not going to do anything. You don't have the guts to pull the trigger, and then he gets shot. And then she proceeds to load him with a few more shots. And seeing how Wilson Fisk handles that loss of his only friend and killing another henchman of his just because he let Wesley go is freaking insane. And that's another thing with ASD. You don't see... It's a lot of emotional irregulation. And I do think you can clearly tell that D'Onofrio is trying to do that with his Wilson Fisk because of the mood swings. You see him flip the table when he has the meeting with Madame Gao, and you see how he'll just go from this calm demeanor out of nowhere, and then at a flip of a switch, just killer instinct. You see it when he kills Ben, when he's telling Ben about, like, I respect you, this, everything you've done, but at the end of the day, you guys went to visit my mother and brought her into this, so now I'm gonna kill you. And he kills Ben. That's just like, all right, hate that Ben died, but those are some of the instances, along with how he interacts with just the general public, that show me or provide just evidence to me that Wilson Fisk, or at least how D'Onofrio is portraying him, is someone who suffers from ASD. So I think that's cool. If that is a choice, if that was a choice by D'Onofrio, I think it was a brilliant one. The show is very fun, very solid. Season 2, however, drops tomorrow, and that gets to where we are in the plugs, where, like I said, this week is Daredevil week. And because we know both Daredevil and Punisher are in Daredevil Born Again, tomorrow, Daredevil Season 2 review. Wednesday, Punisher Season 1 review. Thursday, Punisher Season 2 review. Friday, Daredevil Season 3 review. And then Monday, we have a special video because I'm so excited to do this, and I haven't done one in a little bit. We have an unboxing of the Disney Parks Daredevil Born Again Daredevil mask. So I am very excited to do an unboxing of this with you, or for you guys, and share it with you. So be sure to tune in for those. And maybe if I'm fortunate and lucky enough to get the first couple episodes to review of Daredevil Born Again, I will do a full review I will do a review of it the day the show drops, because I know that's when the embargo lifts that afternoon. So if I'm lucky enough, I will be doing that as well. But until then, folks, signing off. I am Matt. This was a real review, kind of a different one, and we'll see you next time. Oh, before I forget, actually, pause. Views from Metropolis will be back this Friday. It'll be at a different time, however, because the Daredevil review is going at that time, or maybe I'll do this earlier and do the Daredevil review later on. But also check out our sister channel, Watt Gaming, and our Twitch, which is twitch.tv/WattRelent, like it's spelled right there. All right, I promise. Now I'm done. The third time's a charm, right? All right. So signing off, I am Matt, and this was another Real Review. We'll see you next time.